Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at multiple regression, what it is, and look at a few real life examples. So here we go. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at multiple regression. And before we actually start off with the program, which we're again referring to W3 schools, I'll first give you a few examples. So multiple regression is basically it's similar to linear regression, but it's basically in linear regression, the outcome depends only on one variable. Like the outcome of y depends only on x. But in multiple regression, it depends on more than one variable. That's basically the only difference. And some examples that we have is, for example, basically it's about how several independent variables, they simultaneously affect one single dependent variable, which is dependent on all of them. And then there are a few real life examples where they're used. For example, if you're predicting Uber ride prices, then there's a dependent variable, or the y is basically like the total fare of the ride, like how much it's going to cost. And the independent variables then become like the distance of the trip in kilometers, what time of the day it is, like if it's midnight or if it's in the middle of the day, the weather conditions, and so on. And this basically, it matters because like the model lets the algorithm adjust the price dynamically. So then all of the different variables add up, and that's what makes the final outcome. Then there's also fitness and weight loss, that the dependent variable there is the y, or the total daily active calories that are burned. And then the independent variables are like the total number of steps taken throughout the day, average heart rates during workout, and so on. So you get the point, it's basically like a lot of one singular thing outcome depends on several variables. Then another is, for example, like predicting restaurant venue, and yeah. And then we basically have this program. So we're just going to go through it line by line. So I'll just run it once so that you can see the final outcome. So yeah, so multiple regression is basically like linear regression. So basically you have more than one independent value. And while this is running, I'll just start. So in Python, we basically have like a module who will do all the work for us. So we have pandas, and then we're also importing these. And yeah, so ignore this, but here you can basically see the final result. And then after that, we have pandas.read CSV, data.csv, and for this I have, if you go to W3 schools, you can see which CSV file. So you just download the CSV file and then you use it. So we're just using pandas to read the CSV file. And the example that they've taken in W3 schools is about cars and how much carbon dioxide they emit. So then you make a list of the independent values and put this in the variable x over here. And then you have the dependent variables in y. So you can see that the amount of CO2 emitted is the dependent variable, and x is basically like the weight and the volume of the car. And then we're also going to be using this methods from sklearn module. So that's why we basically imported this module. And using that, we're using the linear regression model, so that we can create a linear regression object. And then again, we're just fitting it to make sure that the independent and dependent values like fill the regression object. And after that, we're basically predicting the CO2 values based on the car's weight and volume. So that's what we're doing over here. And then this final outcome, this 107.208, is basically that a car with 1.3 liter engine, which is basically over here, and the weight 2,300 kilograms, will release approximately 107 gram CO2 for every kilometer that it drives. That's how you look at the final result. And then we're printing it. So that's basically multiple regression. It's like an extended form of linear regression.